Hello, kia ora, and welcome to the Creative Matters podcast, where we have inspiring conversations with artists from Aotearoa, New Zealand. I'm your host, Mandy Jakic. Jennie De Groot is a contemporary painter living near Hamilton in the Waikato. Jennie's oil paintings occupy a space where reality, imagination and memory all hold equal tenancy. These psychological landscapes hold the tension between realism and abstraction, place and non-place. Her status as immigrant informs her work, exploring themes of identity and adaptation. After studying archeology, a career in travel consultancy, and moving to New Zealand from South Africa, and then contracting a serious infection at the age of 39, amongst many other things, Jennie finally devoted herself to her art practice at the age of 40. In this awesome, really fascinating episode, Jennie talks about how her landscape paintings reflect more of a feeling, an idea, and are often more about self than actual place. She talks about being in the state of flow and how music contributes to this, how she thinks of herself as a colourist, how she builds her colour palette, and how she creates balance in her work. Also, the different surfaces she likes to paint on and the mark-making tools she loves to use. We talk about her amazing cold comfort and her Figures in Space series and how and why these paintings came about. We also talk about what she loves about painting plein air, why she went back to university in her 50s to gain her Masters in Fine Arts, and how that has contributed to her art practice. She also talks about her amazing mentor relationship and friendship with fellow New Zealand artist Dai Toka, who will also be on the podcast later this year. And we touch on so much more. This episode, I know, you're going to love. Hi, Jennie.
Hi, Mandy.
It's so good to meet you and welcome you to my studio. I haven't had a guest in here since Yvonne Abercrombie, and before then, not for a while. Oh. So, I am doing quite a few Zoom chats at the moment, so there's nothing better than having someone in my studio. Thank you very much for coming up from Hamilton all the way to Muriwai, and a big warm welcome to the podcast.
Well, thank you very much. I'm glad I didn't bring the fog with me this morning.
Yes, me too. And you've had a little look around my garden.
Beautiful.
Which is good. You're not seeing the black taro at its best, but it's still there.
It's still magnificent. I'm sorry, I think it's magnificent.
You can come back in summer and get full appreciation. I have absolutely adored learning more about you and looking at your beautiful work. So looking forward to hearing the story. You were born in the UK and then you ended up in South Africa and then into New Zealand at some point.
Serial migrants is what I like to refer to myself and my family as. My mom and dad are English and Irish, and we moved from England to Namibia first. So I spent a couple of my younger years in Namibia, in the deserts, and then moved to a place called Somerset West, which is just outside of Cape Town, which where I basically had like an idyllic childhood.
Were you a creative kid, do you think?
Yes, I was a creative child because I was curious. I've been a very curious child, but it didn't manifest as drawing or painting. I was curious about people and places and things and why, and very social. So yeah, I loved reading. And although I admired people who could draw and paint, etc., as children, that didn't interest me as a child, interestingly enough.
Yeah, that is interesting. And then as a high school student, were you starting to discover the visual arts?
Once again, no. I was far more interested in people and languages. So I took 3 languages at high school, and I think at that stage my parents really wanted me to go to university to be something or other that required maths, science, a really broad, education, biology, history. So art didn't fall into that category, and it was also extramural. And we lived in a different town to the town I went to school in. Both my parents worked, transport was an issue. So art never fell into any of it. It was probably going to be more writing. I thought maybe I'd be a writer or a journalist, but never a painter. And I admired all the girls around me who could paint and draw. I thought that was wonderful, but it wasn't for me. But my upbringing was quite creative. My dad's an architect. He was a watercolorist, so he would be painting. My mom was creative. She sewed, she cooked, she was a problem solver. She could fix everything. So art was around me. Creativity was around me, but just for myself, it just didn't manifest as a thing. I was more interested in adventuring around and being with people.
And then in 1990, you gained a Bachelor of Arts in archeology, which is also very fascinating. And I can kind of see the links between an interest in the land and what you like to paint.
Yeah, that was also fairly circuitous. I took 5 years to do a Bachelor of Arts because I started with English and then I just kept adding things to it as I found them at university and was really interested in them. So I came across archaeology in my second year and then I just kept adding things, geology, social anthropology, It took me 5 years and an OE to get that degree. But archaeology was the one that held my interest, the sort of narrative in the landscape. And it was about stories people leave behind through the things they have and the idea of layering of information, When you go to a dig, you have to go through these layers of soil and layers of people's lives to find out more about them. And me, who was so interested in people and the why, that just connected.
Yeah, I can see that. So that became your career, did it, for a while?
Once again, no, I seem to turn at every corner. So archaeology is actually quite an academic career. So you do your bachelor's, your honours, your master's, your PhD, and then you spend your life applying for grants. And most of the time you spend your life on one project. And you just fulfilled that one project, which is some of my classmates have just been involved in one project all their life. And I am too impatient and too curious about the rest of the world to be sitting with one thing all my life. So I knew that I wasn't going to be an archaeologist. So after a little bit of more travel, I decided I like traveling and I like people. I'll become a travel consultant. Total curveball. So that's what I did. And that travel agent work enabled me to travel and indulge my curiosity with people and in my people skills, just keep going with that. But I was treading water at the same time. It wasn't what I wanted to do. It was paying the bills. It was keeping me interested in life and blah, blah, blah. And meeting, but it wasn't what I wanted to do. No.
How incredible.
I know.
This story is getting more and more fascinating.
I've done all sorts of things. At one stage, I was working in a nightclub, sort of as a coat check girl in a very schwanky nightclub that had a restaurant. I mean, all sorts of things that I've done in my life that have just kept feeding into what I do now. I don't know where the nightclubbing stuff comes into now, but it was about people skills and learning to listen and watch.
Yeah, it's a very important thing for an artist. Yeah. And you obviously do new challenges and exciting new experiences. You were kind of seeking that.
Yes.
And, new projects. And then at the age of 40, you started painting. So what was the lead up to that?
Well, the lead up to that was boredom with what I was doing. And then the opportunity to travel with my husband for his job meant that I didn't work for a number of years. And when we went to strange places, so at one stage we spent a year we went to London, we came back, we went to a place called East London, which is in South Africa. It's quite remote. It's like Gisborne. All these places, I had to entertain myself. So I would do mosaic class, life drawing class. I would find something. And I started filling up my little basket of things to do with these creative endeavors. And then we had children. When we moved to New Zealand, life is busy when you have kids. And you're moving places and you got to settle everybody. So most of my 30s was doing that, but I still was doing the odd drawing class. And at the age of 40, well, 39, but up to 40, I didn't think I was going to make 40, I contracted typhus. Typhus is like plague.
Oh, my goodness.
But unfortunately, it's not common in New Zealand. It's sort of like a rat-borne disease. You don't get it here. And I almost died.
Wow.
So that was quite a biggie for me. I didn't think I was going to make 40. It was a massive thing.
And how did you contract that?
I think mountain biking along a river, which is probably where the rats were. And I'm not a very good mountain biker, so I often fall off. And I do remember I had a mouthful of dirt that day. So they think that that's how I got it. But for that year, I was the only person in New Zealand to get typhus.
Wow.
I was very excited. I made the infectious diseases doctors quite excited.
Really? Yeah, I bet. And what were the symptoms?
It's like a really bad flu, but then you start to lose your heart starts to fail, your organs start to fail if you don't get treated, and you get photophobic, you hallucinate. It's quite hectic.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so you were in hospital
I was in hospital for a very long time.
Really?
But while I was lying there, I was very, very sad for my family that I was going to die. Obviously my children were young, but I kind of knew everybody would be okay. But I was wild with myself. I was wild because I'd run out of time. And I hadn't done the thing I wanted to do. And the regret is the worst feeling in the world. And I wouldn't wish it on anybody. And I think that's the thing with these kind of awakenings, is that you go, I have wasted all this time, or I haven't utilized this time. I need to do something now, and it motivates you. Somebody says we all get 2 lives, and your second life begins when you realize you only get one. And I think a lot of people need to kind of like hit a bump before they can action something, and I'm one of those. So 40 came, and then it went, and I lived. And when I recovered, I said to my husband, I'm going to have to learn to paint. And he was like, well, you do what you need to do, dear. and he's 100% supportive. But I had young children, and so I just had to learn. Now, I hadn't done anything at high school, no painting, nothing. So I was learning from scratch. Books, videos. I really was making so much mess. So many bad paintings, but I was on a mission because I had that regret, that taste sitting in my mouth still. I knew that it doesn't matter if I'm making a bad painting, I'm just going to keep making.
Wow, that is a really incredible story.
I'm very grateful to be able to remember that quite regularly. Every birthday comes along and I'm aware of it. Because it's that time when I thought, okay, I'm not going to make it. And I go, right, I'm grateful.
Yeah. And that, we've spoken about this before, I think, with other guests, that kind of experience, as shocking as it is, when you get through it, is a gift.
It's a gift, but I really hope most people don't have to do it.
It's
have to
terrifying.
Experience that, yeah.
Especially as a young mum, you're just so worried about your children growing up without a mother.
I remember somebody bringing me daffodils as a gift, and I remember looking at them and going, look how that yellow is different to that yellow. There's something in my whole being just shifted into looking. Something just shifted, and it was great, yeah.
Wow. And were you actually thinking you'd like to be an artist before you got sick? Or was it just something that you kind of came to realize?
I had hoped that I could lead a creative life. I mean, my dad is a fantastic artist, but I seriously I can't draw to save my life. I cannot render something. And so I thought that was outside the realm of possibility. And I had shown no aptitude, none. So why would all of a sudden I pull this rabbit out the hat? But somehow being sick and that desire meant that I needed to fulfill something. I needed to chase it. And I am what you call a generalist. Whatever I turn my eye to, my focus on, to achieve, I can generally do it. So I thought, why not? I can, I'm an autodidact. I can do this. I've done so many other things, taught myself to do a million other things. I can do this. And that's how I began. Wow.
And you certainly can do it. So how did you actually get started? What were you making at the beginning?
Very bad paintings is what I was making. I was working in acrylic because that was the easiest thing to work in at the time. And I started off doing cows, painting cows, because I'd see them on my daily walk. I live outside, sort of Hamilton in the countryside. I would see cows and I would abstract them. And basically they would test, can I paint a cow and abstract the shape and play with color? And that's what I started painting with these cows. And they were, I see every now and again, I go visit a friend and there's a cow on the wall. I'm like, but I'm grateful to them because they were a start.
Yeah. Yeah. That was the beginning. So let's just start talking about your practice now. Can you describe your paintings?
It's an awkward question and one I find quite difficult at the best of times, but I can say I'm a colorist. I enjoy color and I like working with color, and I think I'm quite, I have quite a saturated palette, so my colors are fairly bright. And I paint in layers. I think this comes back to archeology as well. My landscapes are very layered. Using both opaque and transparent paints, creating these glazes, moving paint around. So I will create form not by drawing form, but by moving the paint around to create the form.
Within your practice, you have landscapes, some of them large and some small. But you also do have other series within that are a little bit more figurative. And a little bit more realistic, although still abstracted, I guess. And we can talk more about that, but there's the Cold Comfort series, which is all about the inside of people's fridges, which is amazing. I love that. And also your Figure in Space. Figure in Space?
Figure in Space.
Yeah. Which is becoming more about people and urban spaces and people in the landscape or stories in the landscape, isn't it?
It's quite a weird thing to have 3 streams in your practice. In fact, 4 probably with plein air. You know, these diverse things. Most artists have one thing that they kind of do well, where I'm curious about the world, and I also get quite bored quite quickly. So I can paint, if I paint landscapes, and only landscapes, I feel that I've chopped off a limb, that I'm not being honest to myself. And for my master's project, I wanted to investigate the figure in space, which I did, and that extended on to the Cold Comfort series. So they're all linked. I think when you look at them, my hand is in every one of them, but they all fulfill different purposes for myself. And I feel I need to do those. So yes, I just continue and do them.
Yeah, which is great. And I mean, it does, like you say, feel like it's the same artist making the work.
I'm glad, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. But I can see exactly what you mean. You know, it's nice to have a few sort of things going for your mind to kind of absorb.
A friend of mine described me to somebody else, and as Jenny has 100 projects on at the same time, and she is 100% committed to every one of those projects.
Yeah.
It's that kind of, I need this to keep myself going, otherwise I get bored as well. And things change and your work progresses and your work morphs into something else. And I've got to chase that down to see what it is and how I'm going to make it, or can I make it? Yeah. So it comes back to that curiosity thing again. Yeah. I'm curious and I want to know. So I've got to try.
And you like to push yourself.
Yeah.
And it's always good to get out of your comfort zone.
Oh, absolutely. That's vital. That's the most important thing for any artist. If you're making the same thing over and over again, you are not doing yourself a justice at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. And I think there are people who really enjoy taking on new things because that sort of feeds them. I mean, I think I'm a bit like that. I really enjoy a new project, and I enjoy adding new things to my world, I suppose.
It's so exciting when you learn something new, either about a technique or a medium and yourself. All of a sudden there's another layer to you one that you've built on, one that you've created. It's, that's all about development.
Yeah, that's so true. And as you get older, some people are less like that as they age. But I think that is the key to aging really well, is to continue to learn and continue to push yourself and, taking on things that make you feel a little bit nervous or a little bit out of your depth.
Absolutely.
I think is really important. And then the sense of satisfaction when you achieve that is so good that it just keeps you young.
Yeah. I especially felt that during my master's. I started my master's a couple of years ago in the middle of COVID. And my children looked at me in a slightly different way. I think I was modeling something to them that I didn't realize, but learning continues. Lifelong learning continues. And I was surrounded by everybody from undergraduates through to PhD students. And I could see the value for myself. We were exchanging ideas. It was such a great thing. Such a great thing.
Yeah, I can imagine. Well, we'll talk a bit more about that a little bit later. So let's just go into the different parts of your practice. Your landscapes, I just absolutely love. I love the way you use colour in really interesting ways. There's kind of a tension between realism and abstraction. And I really love the way you come in from different perspectives. Some of your paintings feel like they go on forever. And then it's, your sort of not necessarily bird's eye view, but, it's almost like you're up there.
It's an elevated perspective.
Yeah, they're quite elevated, aren't they, most of them? And that, I find that quite captivating when you first look at your work. So can you talk about your landscapes?
I think the elevation for me in that landscape comes from being a constant migrant, slightly separated from land, just in that bird's eye view, just slightly distant. I had the idea of being untethered. You're not tied to something, and that view is not traditionally landscape. Sometimes I paint things as if you're in an airplane, looking down, like looking at the land in a different way. What do we, what is the mark of human in the land is very clear from that perspective. But I want to create that distant view. And of course, none of my landscapes have geographical coordinates. They're not a place. They're much more a sort of a feeling or an idea. And they're often about self and not about the land. I think all people, if you open them up, are a landscape. So it's that kind of idea that I'm trying to impart in the landscape, so that if you're looking at it, you don't look at it and go, oh, that's Muriwai Beach. You go, that's a place that feels so familiar, or I've never been there, but I get it. I like that to be the impetus for the landscapes.
That's really interesting. And so people, I guess different people connect in different ways. Yeah. And so for you, are you thinking about memories and nostalgia and imagination, using your imagination? Is that part of how you actually create that place?
That place is created from so many things. So yes, there are psychological spaces, there are memory, there are real places that I've been to and have some kind of a feeling about. So I might take the color from that place, or I might take a certain way the land folds or moves. So I pull from all over the place, including my plein air practice, where I go out and paint and I take those studies. So the studio wall is a hot mess when I'm making these paint, because all of these ideas are there, and color as well. And so that's how sort of I start with the idea of this landscape, with all of those references. And music's massive.
In what way?
So music in the studio is, well, first of all, it inspires me. So a certain song might have a feeling for me that I am attached to for one or other reason. But music is also a conduit in the studio to enter into that state of flow, which I think is when I make my best work. And that state of flow is a state of being where you are not really aware of anything other than the making that you're involved with at that time. And it's, I mean, people describe it as sort of an intuitive experience, but you have to get there and stay there. And it's a wonderful place when you are there, because it is all encompassing. You lose sense of time. You just in it, and it flows. Everything's flowing. And I think music really helps me with that process.
And how do you select what you're listening to help you with that flow?
I have a Spotify list of my studio flow, things to get in to the work, and things to maintain that energy. So I curate a little Spotify list for myself, and that changes. All of a sudden, a certain song is just jarring, and I biff that, and then a new one takes place. So I'm constantly looking for those works as well. And if I'm in a real tight spot, I just play my favorite song over and over and over and over again.
Really?
And
what's
that seems to work. Oh, it'll be whatever it is on the day. You know, I'll just choose it depending on my energy and the kind of mood that I want to create. I'll go, oh, that one. And then I'll play that one to death.
And is it gentle, peaceful music, or is it full on energy?
Gentle, peaceful music. Sigur Rós, you know, all those kind of ambient, but every now and again, things with vocals to them. But it changes depending on what's needed.
Yeah, and where you're at in your own head. Yeah, fascinating. And what is your actual process for creating that landscape?
So I will start off with making a color choice of what is the underpainting color going to be. And I will because I paint in oils, make a giant pile of that. And if I'm painting really large, and some of my paintings recently have been 150 by 130, so fairly large, make up a big mess of that, and then lay in an underpainting. And then, as I said, it's all layers. So you start with the next layer. Once that's dried, we go with the next layer. It does mean that I can have 10 paintings on the go at the same time, but that's a positive.
Yeah.
Everything informs on each other, and I can look at what I've done on the one and see does that translate to the next one, or is that too samey, or is that the same feel that I want, and work from there. And it's just a matter of putting layer upon layer upon layer of paint on, and then waiting for it to dry. Yep.
And do you do any sketching or any kind of prep work, maybe with photographs and that kind of thing, to get an idea of the landforms or anything within it?
No, it is all very much in that flow state that I know what I want to be making. And the informing all comes prior. So when I look at the work, when I, curate a little sort of a wall of colors, ideas, photographs that I might have, old paintings of mine, plein air paintings, they all sit together in a little group on the wall, and they will be my reference. Every now and again, I will take a photo and put it into Procreate on my iPad and do a couple of fiddles with that. I'm terrible at it, but it just gives me some idea of where I might go. If I'm waiting for paint to dry and I'm impatient, what if I did this there? Would it work? Try it with that. Yes, so those files are quite useful, but that's my process.
And you're so interested in colour. Do you do, sort of formal colour swatches to sort of create the colours that you want?
Yeah, I do like, and it's almost, that's a fun thing in itself. People go, it should be part of your sort of process. It's part of the process because it's fun. I might take 4 colours and just see what I can do with those 4 colours and white and go for it. And then I pin them on the wall, and then I'll try and work out how on earth did I just make all those colours. But then my little scribbles next to it go, well, this was phthalo and this was magenta and lots of white, and little notes to myself, And they're quite good because I'll grab them off the wall and I'll put them next to another painting and go, actually, that could do with a bit of that.
Yeah.
And pop it in there,
And you decide on your colour palette before you start?
Sometimes yes, sometimes no. Sometimes I'll go, I need to make this, I want a pink painting in here, or I wanted this, and then I'll just pull those paints to the fore to remind myself what to work with. Otherwise, yes, I think I'm more and more I'm making the decision based on colours prior. Yeah, rather than just grab. Otherwise, you default to what you're used to.
Yeah.
You don't bring anything new to the plate.
Yeah, I guess it becomes more intuitive if you're not too organised in that way. Yeah, I really love the way you bring splashes of pink into your green pastures at times. And then it feels like, sometimes your colour palette is really quite limited, isn't it? Like,
I really enjoy being able to mix as many colours as possible from a limited palette. I think it makes the painting more harmonious. So if I am painting something, I will choose the paints and remove everything else off the palette so that I know that it's going to be harmonious, that there's not going to be a jarring colour in there unless I want a jarring colour in there.
When you're thinking about creating a sky for a work, often your works have horizon lines, not always. Are you thinking about a particular day or a time of the day or the weather in a big way, or are you really just thinking about colour?
I'm considering atmosphere. I'm considering the kind of sky that landscape demands. Yes, I will say, you can't have a cloudy sky and a bright landscape. So I will definitely, take a nod to representational and realism there. But when I create the skies, I'm almost trying to create an inhale, exhale feel. So a big sky is usually my go-to, and a balance. So quite often my landscapes are fairly busy on the ground. So I try to create some kind of balance where it's not so busy in the sky. And that's the best way I can describe it, is trying to create a balance.
Yeah. And you do have light, and the light coming through the sky quite often and then sort of onto the landscape.
Yes. If you sit and stare at the sky, it's not all the same color or the same density across it. There are bits where the blue is greener or the pinker, or there's a gray over there, or there's an opaque spot there, and then there's a transparent bit there, and you can see that quite clearly. So I try to get that in the paintings as well.
Yeah, you really do. They feel so unique. I think it is the perspective and the use of colour that makes it feel, these landscapes just feel so you.
Thank you.
They're really beautiful. And you do feel like you can kind of walk down a road somewhere possibly, or come into a property, but in a very kind of abstract way, which was, that push and pull between realism and abstract is really interesting. Some feel more like sort of colour fields, and others feeling like an actual place.
The nice thing about being the master of your own destiny is, and being that sort of in the studio, you can do what you want.
Yeah,
these are your creations.
Exactly.
If you want to do that, then you can do that.
Yeah. So good. And what do you actually work on? Board?
I prefer board. I prefer a solid surface. The bounce of canvas does my head in a bit. And the way that the paint moves across canvas is not conducive to me the way I want to move paint. So I like to use board and ply. Yeah, so I really like that. But I've worked on all sorts of surfaces. I also worked for the Cold Comfort series. I worked on architectural drafting film, because that's what I used to draw on with my dad. Steal bits of his planning, because he would draw plans on it.
Beautiful.
And it's a plastic film that's transparent, but light. If you put it onto a white background, light bounces through and back. So the colors take on this really sort of luminous effect. And when I was wanting to paint the fridges, that popped up and went, I'll use that. I want to get that sort of luminosity that the fridge has.
I love that idea. Yeah, and that sort of coldness and sort of harshness.
Yeah. Slickness, reflective, yes. That's one, and that's a fun surface to work on. But I'll work on just about anything. I've painted on floorboards before. I went on holiday and I was desperate to paint, and I'd run out of everything, and I was staying in an Airbnb where they were renovating and they had floorboards. I phoned up the owner and I said, can I use some? And he went, sure, just leave me one with something on it. And so I did. And so down in Clyde somewhere, there's a house that has a little painting of Jennie De Groot. And I borrowed all the floorboards to paint on. And, that's just, I can do anything with it.
How amazing. I love that. And just lastly, last question on the landscapes. What tools do you use and what kind of brushes do you like?
I use just about everything. So I've got these squeegee tools. I've got, there has been a shower squeegee in there before, rags, brushes, palette knives. Palette knives are always big. The brushes I like to use are hog hair or a synthetic. I generally buy my brushes from a brush maker in the UK called Rosemary & Co. But I'm not adverse to picking up whatever's going around, including a house painting brush. And so it's a multitude of tools. Anything that can make a mark is legit,
Yeah.
So that, yes, there is a toothbrush that goes in there sometimes for a scrubby bit, but everything is, so long as it's a mark making tool, I'm happy to use it.
Great attitude. Love it. So you spoke briefly about the plein air paintings that you do, and I did watch, or I think I read an article, or maybe it was on your Instagram page, of you with your dad both making plein air painting of the same spot, working alongside each other.
Very cool.
Which is such a beautiful thing to do. So how did you get into that, and what do you love about doing that?
Plein air came about that I wanted to do quick studies while I traveled. Nothing, a photograph is great, but something about the essence of a place isn't quite captured as well as painting. And I came across a fantastic artist in the States called Martin Campos, and he was painting these little plein air paintings, and I invited him out to do a workshop because if you want to learn from somebody, rather than me going there, with my travel agency skills, I could organize groups and conferences. So I would get him to come out and organize a workshop. And he brought out this very clever little set of cigar boxes that he converted into little plein air painting sort of palette sets. And that meant I could just, rather than having a big clunky French easel, it's this little thing that slips into your box along with your lunchbox full of paints, and you can paint anywhere. And so I really could. I could go anywhere and paint and be quiet, and nobody's looking at you if you're sitting there with a little lunchbox-like thing. And I could paint surreptitiously and have all these studies. So that's what I did.
Beautiful.
Everywhere we went, I had this little paint box with me.
Yeah. And were you doing that, do you think, to capture that moment, or do you think it was more about preparing for future works?
It was capturing the moment. I knew I'd want to paint future works from it. So it's a multitude of things. It was something to do while my children went mountain biking, and if I didn't want to go. And I wanted a bit of me time. I could say, I'm going painting, and everybody leave me alone. Yeah. And it's a chance to be outside. If you're sitting outside and you're painting from nature, you connect in a way that you don't from a photograph, you don't from a memory. It's an immediacy to the work, and things happen in that immediate painting session that you don't remember, you don't think about. But why did I put that splash of there? Why is there a daub of that? And it adds to the next painting. So when I'm making a big one, I think actually I should have that kind of vitality. And you're doing it quickly. I mean, I'm painting for half an hour. That's it. And I'm done with that little, because it's tiny. It's 15 by 15 centimeters. So done. That immediacy is something that I'd like to translate back in the studio. So when I take those back to the studio and look at them, I remember being there. I remember smelling what it smelled like. And then there's the immediacy of the work.
And I guess it's kind of tapping into your emotions a little bit more.
Yep.
And how you're feeling on the day. Yep. And that sort of idea of challenging yourself to do something small and quick.
Small, quick.
Is probably a good part of your practice.
Yep.
Yeah. Interesting. I've never tried that.
It's fun. Do.
You kind of always imagine it's sort of old people with watercolours doing that kind of thing.
Yeah, and you have to get over the performance anxiety of it all. And there is somebody who's going to come and peer over your shoulder and go, my Aunt Mary paints flowers and she's a lot better than you. So you have to, you just got to go, thank you, sir. Nice to see you. So you've just got to be calm and, about it. And that's why that little pochard that's so tiny in the size of a cigar box is really quite useful, because it's not the whole setup that a French easel is. It's a kind of furtive experience, but it is fun.
I love that idea. And onto the Cold Comfort series, which we have already touched on. That came about in COVID. Can you tell me more?
Who hasn't had the experience of standing in front of an open fridge and you not hungry, but you are standing in front of the open fridge yet again? And I stood there in COVID times looking for something, and it wasn't in the fridge. And I thought, I wonder how many other people are doing this. And I painted my own fridge a few times. And then I asked other people, because of course you couldn't contact people, send me a photo of your fridge, please, my friends. So they did. And then I sent it out on Facebook, and strangers sent me their fridges, and I started the series slowly over a couple of years, painting the inside of the fridges to see how we are more similar than we are different. It's slightly voyeuristic, this peering into somebody's sort of psyche, like what is in your fridge. But it was a really cool project. Things came out of that. Yeah, it was really good.
Yeah, that's really interesting. It's such a unique idea. And I just can't help but wonder if people tidied their fridges before they sent the photo.
Some people did.
I think I would have to.
Some people did, but some people were really good and just like stuck the pot in there. Or I did have to get hold of a friend of mine and say, your photo, second left, what's that? And she said, it's a tiramisu. I said, oh my God, I wanted tiramisu in my fridge. But anyway, that one of those cold comforts got into the Molly Morpeth Kennedy Award. So I was very chuffed about that. And I framed it in a sort of a metal, icy metal frame as well. So it sort of mimicked that fridge.
Yes, vibe. I love it. And the colours, even though there are bright, sort of warm colours in there, it still sort of has a feeling of coldness.
Well, some people's fridges are warm with that yellow light, and some are cool with the modern fridges. They have this cool light, and that really affects how you feel about the food in the fridge as well.
That's so true. We've just got a new fridge actually for our kitchen reno, and we nearly put our old fridge in, which actually was about 15 years old, which we kind of hadn't, it still kind of felt new to us. And we thought, oh, there's nothing wrong with this fridge, But then we were like, oh no, we can't put an old appliance into a brand new kitchen. And then also our plumber, he's like, it's a game changer. You've got to have a water filter on your fridge. So I'm going to put in a pipe. So if you ever do decide to buy a fridge with a water filter and an ice maker, you're ready. And my husband and I looked at each other and were like, oh, we need to buy one now. We're not going to wait. And it is actually a real joy to have a beautiful new fridge. And, they have improved so much in
they're so
even
much
that
more
15 years.
Energy efficient, new ones are. But yeah, some of my American friends sent me their fridges and they look different. They have different things.
That'd be big.
Yes. Or like American people keep their eggs in the fridge. We don't, because we don't need to. And so it's just little things like that became sociologically interesting for me. So I went back to sociology at university. Like, people like us do things like this. Condiments go where? Everybody. I can't tell you the number of people who said to me, sorry about the broken shelf, or please don't look at the crack. We all have fridges that have dings and cracks and not so cool things in them. And it was that kind of communal identification, that really appealed to me. When the more I showed the paintings, the more people went, oh, my fridge looks like that, or I feel I know that fridge, or I identify with that fridge.
Yeah, and then also connecting with the person who owns the fridge.
Yes.
And kind of, it is expressing identity, really, in a way.
Who knew that a little project of me standing in front of the fridge going, I'm hungry.
Yeah.
but I shouldn't be eating. Would end up like this.
And what it's led to. How amazing.
I think that's, once again, follow your curiosity.
And what's going to happen with this series, do you think?
I'm going to continue it for a little while. I'll show a different version of this because I showed one at home. I had a home exhibition of this series. I think I wanted to show it in the domestic space, but I'll have an exhibition of those in February again next year, and make some more for them. I've had a few more people send me their fridge photos.
Yes, maybe I'll send you one myself.
Send me your one.
I will. And any listeners?
Absolutely, send me a photo of your fridge.
What's the best way to send a photo?
Instagram. DM me on Instagram is probably the easiest one.
Yeah.
But yes, so that'll be an ongoing project, I think, for a while. Until I turn my attention onto like the bathroom cabinet.
The next thing. Oh, the bathroom cabinet. That could be very telling. I love it. And then the figure and space work that we mentioned, that kind of came out of your master's degree. So 2022, you gained your master's of visual arts, which was at Waikato Institute of Technology. So I guess before we start talking about that work, can you tell us why you decided to go back to uni?
Well, my thought at the time was that I wanted to place myself within contemporary painting because I recognized that landscape is not seen as contemporary subject matter. So I wanted to shake that up, really. I also felt that my brain could do with a rev up, and I also wanted some academic rigor to my work. So back to study it was. So they accepted me for the master's program, so that was really good. And that's the reasoning, really. I just wanted to push. There were some thoughts in the beginning, because I don't have an undergraduate degree in art, that should I have had one? I don't think I should have. I think the master's gave me the academic rigor that I wanted, and the setup of the master's, because I'm an autodidact, appealed to me as well. It was about me seeking learning as much as them imparting wisdom. But yes, it was very good experience for me.
And is that when you did a lot of painting in a studio by yourself, or were you really part of a community of artists?
I always paint in the studio by myself. There was a large facility there which goes from undergraduates through to postgrads. But because it was COVID, every now and again it would be shut down and you'd have to go home. I'm really used to working by myself, and I quite like it. So I enjoyed the company while it was there, but when we had to work from home, I wasn't fazed much at all. It was just a different way of working.
How did you find being back at uni in your 50s?
It was good. I was quite happy with it opened me up to a whole new swathe of people, which I think was really valuable. And getting the brain working again was a bit of a curly one for the first couple of readings. What did I just read? Academia and philosophy is pretty difficult, and it's a philosophy heavy degree. But I mean,
you get used to it.
Not only do you thrive, you start getting into it and you start thrill in it. I took, you're allowed to, as a master's student, audit another class. So basically means you can go and try something else. And the honors student had a spectacular program with philosophy. And so I audited that. And that was fantastic. I really enjoyed that as well. So I just stretched myself a little in that direction.
Yeah. Do you feel really like that influenced your practice?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, how amazing to have, basically been self-taught, and then to have all those years of making, and then sort of have this experience where you could really develop your practice further and really kind of take yourself into a different place, I suppose. That must have just been so motivating.
I think the idea, if you get stuck, you need to ask for help. And I think that's exactly what the master's was I got stuck not knowing what to do with, landscape. And the master's was, here's what you can do. You can spread your wings. And I wanted to do this figurative work. And that's what it was to me. It was like, I need help. We're going to help you.
Yeah.
This is your project.
That's brilliant.
Well, the figure in the landscape idea came via also Martin Campos, because when he came out to do a plein air workshop, he also did a figure in the landscape kind of workshop as well, basically figure drawing. And that's where that really appealed to me. So that I could bring what little I started with Martin, I could bring that into the master's project and then develop it now further, which is what I hope to do. Well, I'm always developing everything further. Aren't we all doing that? We're just taking ideas and pushing and pushing and pushing. Sometimes I feel that having these strands of work, they bleed into each other. They obviously cross over. But every now and again, I have to say to myself, you need to go back and focus on that for a little bit. Or if you're getting bored with this, go and do that for a little bit.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. And you said earlier that you didn't think that you were very good at drawing. So how did you find tackling the figure?
Well, when you're bad at drawing, you just have to practice and get better at it, don't you? And I'm not a great one I think it's the perfectionist in me that goes, if I'm not good at it first time, I don't even want to try it. I've got to get over that. And I've got to be bad at something and then get better at it. So it really was making a lot of bad drawings to get some better drawings, to get some acceptable drawings. You can't expect to be good at something if you don't practice. And I think I'd conflated practice and play and failure. In fact, I'd conflated practice with failure. If you had to practice something, it meant you weren't good, it meant you were a failure. And so that's a conflation that I've really only just now coming to terms with, going, oh no, that's not how that works.
And the thing with drawing, I mean, some people do seem to have this innate sort of natural ability in drawing, but a lot of it is just about drawing and drawing and drawing.
Absolutely. And I grew up with a dad who's an architect. I'd say to him, can you draw me a horse? And he'd draw me a horse. Like, oh, you've got to be kidding me. How do you do that?
Yeah.
But that was his job because he practiced drawing every single day, which I didn't realize. So that practice and being bad at something being bad at something is both liberating and exhilarating and challenging at the same time, because you can only get better.
And
you have to get
it's the
better.
way you look at it or the way you deal with it is the thing. Yeah. And so that series, The Figure in Space, as I said, you're placing stories and figures and other things, urban things that we recognize, like a swimming pool, into your landscape. Do you feel like you're retaining that landscape style that you have, or does that take on a whole new look?
I'm not sure at this stage. I don't think I can change the way I make things. I think I modify them so that they suit the painting. It's what the painting wants. I mean, how many times do we say the painting needs this? It's what the painting wants, and what the painting needs is then I make something the way the painting needs it to be. I think my landscapes are very much me. Yeah. I mean, the figure in space are far closer in proximity. So when you look at them, everything's much closer. You don't have that depth of field that you do with the landscapes. And so the mark making is slightly different, but I'm introducing hard edges and awkwardness into the paintings that's not there with the landscapes. And
it does feel a little bit more narrative. Is that how you're thinking?
It's definitely more narrative. And that's, I think, when you've put a figure in space, there is always a narrative, because all of a sudden, why? Why is that person there? What are they doing? You start asking, who are they? Blah, blah, blah. You start the questions. And I think mine comes from, I started this painting these as my children were getting into their late teens and leaving, and they were really, just when they could become interesting people, they leave. And I'm very, very miffed about that. But I was also looking at our worlds that intersect, their world and my world. And that became the focus for these paintings, as well as elements of my youth that featured a lot around swimming pools and tennis courts and that kind of privilege of life in apartheid South Africa, that somehow my children being the same age as I remember myself always being, I was transposing those two together. And modern day contemporary issues. One of the paintings that I painted was called, that also got into Molly Morpeth, was called OK Boomer. And it's about the struggle between those people who own land and homes and those who aren't ever going to be able to. And I'm looking at my children and I'm looking at myself, So those kind of narratives, they're not overt in the painting, but they're there. They're definitely more uncomfortable.
Do you have that in your mind when you start the painting?
Quite often I start those paintings not sure what those individuals are doing, and the narrative develops through the work. I'm not a great one for starting with a fully formed idea, because then why would you even I don't understand that for my own practice. I have to find the meaning as the painting develops.
Yeah, I love that. So alongside the landscape work, you do also make smaller works, which in your website is actually a different category of paintings. And they are truly beautiful also. Why do you think you like to work small?
I like, once again, it comes through to that thing that I get bored and I want to try things. Could I make this big? Can I make this small? Does it translate from the one to the other? Could the one inform the other? All these sort of questions go round and round in the head. I started making really small ones, some really small paintings where I think they're like 6 centimeters by 6 centimeters across. They are tiny. And they were at the end of the painting session. I would quickly make one of those using the leftover paint, because who wants leftover paint? And I began to amass those. And they, because of their immediacy and their size, became sort of really interesting pieces to then think about, could I scale that up? Would I want to? Would it work? And it's nice to be able to work small and big at the same time, flexing the brain, flexing different muscles. But yeah, it started off as play and curiosity. I wonder. How many times do I say, I wonder what would happen?
And do you have them in your studio?
I have a series of those on the wall, and I use them for inspiration. I'll pluck something off and go, I like those colors, I want to use those colors. So they stay in the studio. I did put 100 together on one big panel and frame them.
Wow.
And so that's hanging above the guest room bed at the moment. And I still like painting unusual surface shapes, rounds. There's something about painting small that's suits me if I'm being particularly impatient and I want to do something now, and it must almost be finished in a week, kind of thing. Then I can paint small, and just and feel that I've achieved something.
Yeah.
If I'm working on a big painting that's taking weeks, months to do, painting small feeds that little monkey that's going, do it now. Let's be over with.
That's such a good idea. I think that's really smart. And then you're creating also more beautiful paintings. And, possibly they'd be cheaper, so they could be more accessible.
And sometimes they are, because I don't put any value on them, because they are just something I'm doing at the end. Really good ideas come from that relaxation of, as an artist who has to make her money selling paintings, you're always thinking, will this sell? Which is not a great way to be making work all the time. So I already feel with my figurative work that that's kind of my work. So to be able to have a little something that you can just breathe through and just not think too hard about, and that still delivers, is really great.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And I guess you can use those to be a little bit more experimental.
Yes, definitely.
Which is nice.
Weird stuff happens. And I don't care stuff happens. And I wonder what would happen if I do. What if I monoprinted this and I just smack it onto a surface and then take a print off that? I would never have done that with a big painting.
No. So it's great. It's quite liberating. Yeah. And how do you find, just speaking about your different aspects of your practice, do you find that collectors like all of your work, or are there certain people who connect to certain parts of your practice?
Those who like landscape, and those who like the figurative work, like the figurative work, and those who like the Cold Comfort series are very confused.
Like fridges. Love eating.
A different audience as well. There is no accounting for what people like and don't. I can't think about it all the time. I just have to make and know that maybe they have an audience and they have an audience and they have an audience.
Yeah.
And be grateful that they do. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's the great thing, that they are, they are developing their own audiences.
Yes. And that I have the capacity to wholly and with great focus perform all of them to a standard that I'm happy with. If I was weak in one and stronger in the other, and it showed, I wouldn't be showing them. So I'm delighted for myself that I can, without too much trouble, flick between these modes.
And what do you say to people who don't believe artists should do that?
There's a million ways to skin a cat, each to their own. If that's their belief, then that's absolutely fine. But I don't believe that. I think it's about personality, who can do what. Morandi only painted bottles on a table for how long? Bully for Morandi, that's great. That's what Morandi needed. I can't do that. So and then once again, it comes back to that thing. I've got this one life. I've got to do what I want to do and how I want to do it. Can't be listening to everybody.
No, that is so smart. And we did talk a little bit about your studio, but and the fact that you open it up sometimes and have like a show in your studio, which is such a great idea. It's something I've done in the past, which I really love. And I feel like it's just such a nice way to connect with your audience.
Yeah, it's personal.
It's really personal. And it brings a whole other element to the work, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So can you tell us about that? And then also your studio buddy, Dai Toka. I know that you get together once a week. So that's a really interesting concept, I think, for me to hear about and for our listeners. So could you talk about the studio and your professional and, I guess, personal relationship with Dai?
Well, I'll talk about Dai first because she's something else. She is Dai Toka, sculptural cast glass artist. Di and I met a number of years ago at an exhibition. We invited her to exhibit with me next time I was exhibiting, and she said she hadn't for a while, and it was a friendship and a relationship that has grown from there. We work together in a way that we support one another. So we have a Monday morning phone meeting where we basically go over various things we've noted, and want to know about each other. Did you do the thing you said you're going to do last week? Hey, I saw you write about this, and things like that. But we also are so different in our approaches that it's beneficial. She's the other half of the way I don't think. So attention to detail, business-minded. I mean, she works in a completely different medium. So there's no jealousy, competition. There is nothing but support. And that's been fantastic. We will take trips up to Auckland to go see galleries and look at new work. So she's a buddy in the way that it's like a business partner, but without the financial complications. Hugely important, and a support. So she will very happily say to me, you just put something out on Instagram. I'd like you to take that down. Thank you very much. If it does not serve me, or if she thinks that it's not serving my general image, whatever. And I'm so grateful for that kind of stuff, because
Really?
everybody needs, if you do make a misstep, you do want somebody to go, oh, that didn't sit very well with the rest of it. What's going on? So she does that for me as well. We introduce each other's work around as well. Yeah, it's an amazing relationship, and I'm very grateful for it. Those Monday mornings are sacrosanct, you know. We talk about everything from, I'm very bad on Xero, so I might be asking her some accounting questions, but I'll talk about articles I've read, or I'll talk about an interest that I see coming through the art world, or things like that. So I'm big on research, and she's big on sort of the details and the business part of it. So we sort of complement each other.
What a fantastic combination. Isn't that great?
It's fantastic.
That must be so nice to have. And so, I mean, it's just nice to get opinions and somebody else's voice in your head.
We both had rural studios and work by ourselves. And we had children the same age. So we were experiencing similar issues. So to have each other's back, and understand what it's like as working mothers was really important. Balancing life and children and trying to get our careers going, and being both of us outside of the big art center. So we're regional, you know, and that in itself is an issue. So it's been great to have that kind of support.
That's brilliant. And I guess coming from university, you know, maybe you missed that sort of artist community potentially, or was that something that you really felt a part of or not?
I was a part of everything at university, including the artist community. I was very social at university. I knew everybody and everything. It was quite interesting. I think it's vital for artists to be part of communities, but quite often everybody's, you know, people turf protect and don't share information. And I think it's the sharing of information that is the most valuable.
Yeah, absolutely. So good. What a great collaboration, really.
Yeah, she's magnificent.
I'm looking forward to meeting her. She is coming on the podcast.
Excellent.
So, yeah, I'll hear her perspective of that. And just back to the studio life, you've got a really well set up studio on your property.
So my studio is actually connected to the house via a little corridor. So I walk to work every day. It's quite nice. I could be there when the children were at school. It was quite important for me to be still very much connected to them, so I could pick them up and drop them off. It's a very nice studio, south light, enough space. I mean, there's never enough space in the studio, which is always an issue, but I'm very grateful for it. Yeah.
Yeah, so good. And I love the way that you open your studio, you know, sometimes to show work. Do you have it open at other times, or is it just to show a series of work?
This time it was just to show a series of work. Otherwise, I mean, I've recently been part of the inaugural Waikato Creative Arts Trail, which was great. But Di and I often will organise open studios at the same time. So it's between Cambridge and Nahinapuri, where I live, just outside of Hamilton, so that people can go and do both on the same day, which is, you know, if you're going out for one, go out for two, you know. But opening the studio up is a very nice thing to do. It makes you tidy your studio up, but you get to meet people that you wouldn't usually meet. And you get to show them what it is to make work, and that you're quite serious. It's not a hobby. A lot of people think that you sit at the kitchen table and do it. It's not that at all. And there's a lot of equipment required, and they get that insight. And so they understand then the physical value of work as well, you know.
And how do you get the word out and get people coming?
Well, social media these days, targeted email list. Yes, your Facebook things. You know, you put it out as much as you possibly can and hope that word of mouth spreads.
Yeah, that's great. Such a good idea. And can you tell us about your galleries? You're at Black Door Gallery in Parnell and Muse Gallery in Havelock North.
Yes.
And also Gallery De Novo in Dunedin.
Yes.
Which is a lovely spread across New Zealand. How do you find the relationship with your galleries, and how did you initially make contact?
My relationship with galleries is very good. I'm very grateful for them because, of course, they're business partners. That's what they are. They're your business partners in the public mode. My gallery, so I was introduced to Black Door via Dai, which was wonderful. Otherwise, I have introduced myself to the other galleries. So to Muse, I introduced myself. This was Kay Magava. And Gallery de Nova, once again, I introduced myself as well. So it's, you've got to breathe in deep, get your portfolio together, make sure you get one chance to make a good first impression. And you do have to reach out. I was recently speaking to an artist who says in the UK, galleries reach out to the artists and not the other way around. So I do notice in New Zealand, you do have to do a lot of the approaching.
Yeah.
They're not going to come and knock on your door and go, "We love you. Want to show with us?" You have to approach them. And artists are not particularly good at promoting themselves. And that first step is often the hardest one to do.
And do you email with images of your work?
Yes. So I'll often, if I've got new work, I will email and say, "This is what I've got. Would you like them?" Yes. And then we'll send them off. Yeah.
And have you ever done the school shows or Art in the Park or any of the other?
In the beginning, I did the school shows, and you do all of those. You do Auckland. What was the Auckland one called? There was an Auckland art show. There you do what you can in the beginning. You hustle, and that's the if you're starting out, you hustle. You are in tiny little galleries at the beach. You're doing whatever you can possibly do to get your name out there, and then slowly you crawl up ladders, etc., to get to the place where you want to be. You work hard at those relationships because they're worth making sure that you're doing all the right things.
And you become more exclusive.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that sounds really terrible, but it's important. You cannot be everywhere. And a lot of galleries that you are with rely on that you're not everywhere, that you're exclusive. You can't be seen everywhere. It's about a supply and demand thing as well.
Yeah. And commissions, you are very open to commissions.
I love the commission process.
Which is really interesting for me because I guess somebody approaches you because they love your work and they want something similar. They're not saying, "Can you recreate a particular spot?"
No, yeah.
Which is kind of nice. Yeah. That's probably why you're still doing commissions.
Yeah. The commission process is obviously fraught. You're collaborating with somebody and you're trying to find middle ground to an idea that they have and that one that you can fulfill. But I enjoy the process as long as you're honest and open about it all. And yes, they've chosen me because they like my work. And then if I cannot do something that they would like me to do, I'm honest about that and say I can't do that and try and recommend somebody else who might be able to do that. But yeah, I enjoy the process. You are bringing somebody's dreams to reality. That's an unusual thing to be able to do for somebody.
And it would be, in a way it would be easier, and in a way I imagine it could be harder presenting something that's sort of abstract but has realistic kind of
Yes, if you can
feels.
Tie whatever you've done back to the conversation you had and often to specifics, it's, that's why art history is so important in education, is the Blue Riders of the German movement makes no sense out of context. You have to know the historical environment they were working in and why they came to the fore to appreciate their work. So if I can explain that they said X, Y, and Z, and I've translated that as ABC, that makes sense, and the painting then becomes theirs. Yeah, context.
And how are you, if people have really strong ideas about exactly which colours you have to use, how do you find that?
Well, that's a conversation about, now, why did you ask me to do this if you've already got, you have to trust me on certain aspects. And that's an honest conversation of you have to trust me. And you have to step back a wee bit. Otherwise, this is just going to be a terrible thing and not something that I can create. So you have to be really honest.
Yeah.
Because it's your name's going to be on that painting. You have to be comfortable with it as well. It's always about just honest conversations.
And you have to enjoy making it.
I have to enjoy making it.
Yeah,
Yep.
Totally. At Muse Gallery, you do have a solo show coming up on August the 31st, and that runs through for most of September.
Yes.
All of September. That's called Far Sight.
Yes.
Can you tell us very briefly about that show?
Oh, what a wonderful opportunity at Muse. They asked me to show, and when I said, what would you like to see? And they went, anything. So that is
Wow.
fantastic.
Yes.
I created a body of work which Genesis is teaching both my boys to drive a car. And I realized that the act of sitting side by side with them and the horizon in front sort of mediated all sorts of very cool conversations with them. You know, some of them quite intimate, some of them conversation, but very, very amazing time with my boys. That sort of last time that I could sort of walk with them in that parental role of teaching them something, you know.
Yeah.
The next time now I'm just an advisor. But I was still, captain. So now the body of work that I created came out of all of those conversations I had with the boys in the car. And it just reminded me that we are landscapes. And so that's what I created, were these series of landscapes called Farsight, based around those little conversations I had with my boys.
I love that. That's so beautiful. And it really marks that, end of an era in a way as a mother.
But they're also, I think anybody who needs a bit of respite in their life, if you're standing in front of one of those expansive landscapes, I think you can find it. And I really wanted to create this really peaceful body of work that allows your mind just to drift off and you to be engaged in something that is not your worldly troubles.
Beautiful. Or maybe we'll put an example of one of those works on your blog post.
That would be cool.
People can have a look. Another exciting thing that has happened to you recently is a wonderful residency which you have won in Ireland, which is going to be November of 2024.
Yes, I've been awarded a residency. Ballinglen Arts Foundation is a foundation set up, I think it was in the late 90s in Northern Ireland in County Mayo. And it's an amazing opportunity to live and work in rural Ireland on the coast. It's got a bespoke studio and a place for me to live. Family and friends are invited, so it's a really nice, it's an inclusive experience. It has a wonderful library and you're requested to paint something for their museum. So there'll be a museum acquisition as well included with that. But it is something that I have been hankering after for years now, is this residency opportunity. And to be awarded this residency where all my heroes have been a resident as well has been amazing. And this fellowship is definitely, and it's come at the right time for me. I'm really keen to do this. And just when I needed to sit down for 6 weeks and delve into something new, I get the opportunity. So I'm super excited.
Yeah.
So yes, November.
That is so exciting.
Yeah.
And I wonder what work you'll end up creating.
I'm not sure, given that it's such a beautiful landscape place, but I think figurative will be included in that because I remember the people as well. And there's something about it. My mom's Irish, and there's something about going somewhere where your people are from that makes you look at it in a broader context, not just landscape or people, and the figure in landscape might be part of that as well.
Yeah.
And plein air, of course. I do have to harden up because it's going to be cold.
Yeah, it'll be freezing.
But I'm really looking forward to it.
That'd be incredible.
It's a wonderful opportunity and I'm very grateful for it.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't often find residencies like this, and to be offered a fellowship is an amazing thing.
Well done. Congratulations. Can't wait to see what you create.
And
do you actually, that process of applying for a residency like that, how do you hear about it? And then what's the process for applying?
Well, the residency I've heard about because artists that I have greatly admired have been there. And so I researched that residency. And a couple of years ago, maybe 7 or 8 years ago, I actually went and did a workshop there as well. So I know the environs and it's an incredible place. Applying for these things is very much just a matter of getting your portfolio together and a motivating statement and lining up your referees and applying. There's often a nominal cost involved. But yes, some of the residencies one has to apply for require you to have a project. And because I don't know what I'm going to make until I'm there, I think that's almost an impossible request. This project is based on those images that I sent them of landscape, but you are not beholden. You are offered the space as a free experimental time for yourself. So that's a huge luxury. I use various websites and where I want to go and what I want to do, but I wanted one in Ireland. So this was the one for me.
Wow.
So I've been applying for years.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That's fantastic. Oh my goodness, that would just be an absolute dream.
It's fantastic.
Is there anything else that you feel like we haven't touched on that you'd like to touch on?
Yes, I'd like to touch on the fact that I love living in New Zealand. Yeah, it has been the best for a landscape painter and for a plein air artist to have the freedom to just go out and paint wherever I want to go and paint. It's extraordinary. And that is something that I didn't ever think about in Africa because I couldn't. But yes, loving being in New Zealand and painting here. Yeah, I'm so glad. I'm so delightful. I've been able to reinvent myself.
Yeah,
to the person that I think is probably the closest to my authentic self that I could possibly be, and that has been courtesy of New Zealand and the way we live here.
That's such a nice thing to say. And I wonder if your art would have been any different if you'd stayed in Africa.
I don't believe I would have been an artist.
Really? Why is that?
I think it has everything to do with the way we would live, where we would live, and how we would live. I think there's a lot of, I think I would have always just dabbled in little bits and pieces and not given myself over to it.
Oh, well, we're very pleased to have you here in New Zealand, art-wise and person-wise.
Thank you.
If that makes sense. So, yeah, it's great that you found a place that really feeds you creatively. Yeah. Okay. Is there anything else you'd like to say before we start the questions, Jenny?
I hate the questions.
You hate the questions?
No.
What do you mean?
Oh, the questions are the questions. No, there's nothing else I want to say before.
Okay. What would you say to your younger artistic self?
I would come back to that don't conflate practice with failure. And be resilient. Nothing comes all at once. It's one step, one step, one step, one step. Yes. Yes,
so true. What do you find most challenging about being an artist?
That I'm going to run out of time before all my ideas come to fruition.
Wow, that's a good problem to have, in a way.
It is a good problem to have in a way, but yes, that I will run out of time and energy, yeah.
Who are some of the artists you admire and might inform your work?
The artists that I admire, God, this was the question that I really struggled with because it changes depending on what I'm working on, in all the fields. But the constants have been two. Alex Kanevsky, painter art, a Russian painter, also an immigrant to America, and David Bowie. So these two painters, well, this painter and a musician, I think, they constantly embrace change and being uncomfortable. And I admire them for that.
So that brings us to a close, Jenny. Thank you so much for coming all the way out to Muriwai. It's been really lovely talking to you. It's so nice to have someone, as I said, back in the studio. And you're very inspiring, and thank you so much for sharing your story with us.
And thank you. And thank you for all those interesting questions. Good for thinking about.